I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this, but life has a funny way of throwing curveballs. My name is Jake, and I was married to Emily for over 6 years. We seemed like a perfect couple, great jobs, a beautiful home in the suburbs, and a circle of friends who thought we were the envy of everyone. Or at least that's what I thought. But over time, I started noticing that something was off. Late nights at work turned into frequent weekends away. Emily's phone became her lifeline. I'd catch her often texting, the glow of her screen lighting up her face in the dark. Whenever I peeked over her shoulder, she'd quickly minimize whatever she was looking at, flashing a tight-lipped smile that never quite reached her eyes. I shrugged it off, telling myself that she was just busy with her job. Working as a marketing executive meant long hours after all. The first real crack in the facade came when she started using the phrase self-care a lot. Suddenly, she had all these new hobbies, yoga classes, spa days, and brunches with friends I had never heard of. She'd come home from these outings glowing, her hair perfectly styled, a hint of something floral in her perfume that was different from what I remembered. I tried to ignore my growing suspicions, but the doubt began to eat away at me. Then came the day that changed everything. I had taken a vacation day to handle some home repairs, and I came home early to surprise her. I parked the car in the driveway, feeling pretty pleased with myself. I stepped inside, expecting to hear her voice or maybe catch the smell of something cooking. Instead, I was met with an unsettling silence. I wandered through the house calling her name, but there was no reply. That's when I heard the sound, a low, muffled laugh coming from our bedroom. My heart raced as I approached the door, and I just stood there for a moment listening. I could hear her voice, unmistakably flirtatious, and then I heard another voice, a deep, smooth male voice that made my stomach churn. In that moment, my heart sank. I pushed the door open, and what I saw will be burned in my memory forever. There she was, my wife, tangled in the sheets with some banker I'd never met. My mind went blank. I couldn't process what was happening. It was as if someone had punched me in the gut. "Emily!" I shouted, my own voice sounding foreign to me. She bolted upright, her eyes wide with shock. The banker scrambled to pull on his clothes, moving too slowly for my liking. "Jake, oh my God," she stammered, covering herself with the sheets. I felt rage boiling inside me, mixing with disbelief. "What the hell is this?" I demanded, my voice shaking with anger. "It's not what it looks like," she blurted, her eyes darting between me and the half-dressed man still fumbling with his shirt. "Then what is it?" I shot back, incredulous. "Because it looks like you're cheating on me with a man who looks like he just walked out of a finance magazine." "Jake, please, I can explain," she begged, her voice rising with desperation. I wasn't in the mood for her excuses. I wanted the truth. She took a deep breath, attempting to compose herself. "I didn't mean for this to happen. We were just friends. It's not serious. You know how stressful things have been for me at work. I just wanted an escape." "An escape?" I repeated, my voice rising. "By sleeping with some guy? Is that your idea of self-care?" I felt my anger shift into a whirlpool of emotions, betrayal, sadness, fury. How could she twist this around? I wanted to scream, to break something, but instead I just stood there, grappling with the fact that the woman I loved had shattered our life together in a matter of moments. The banker, who had quietly slipped into his pants, looked between us, clearly uncomfortable. "I think I should go," he said, trying to defuse the situation. I shot him a glare that could have burned a hole through steel. "Yeah, you should," I said, my voice low and dangerous. He quickly made his exit, leaving Emily and me alone in the room that once felt so safe and welcoming. "What are you going to do?" she asked, her voice trembling now. "I don't know yet," I replied, feeling the weight of my world crashing down on me. All I knew was that everything was about to change. That night marked the beginning of my emotional roller coaster. The initial shock of betrayal morphed into a simmering anger, then into heartbreak. I spent hours replaying moments in my head, feeling like a fool for trusting her. How could I have been so blind? I felt humiliated, angry, and deeply hurt. As I lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, I made a decision. I wouldn't let this destroy me. Emily may have taken my trust and shattered it, but I would rise from this. I would build something she couldn't even dream of. I would ensure that she was the one left with nothing. I wasn't going to confront her about what came next, not yet. Instead, I started planning my revenge. The next few days were a whirlwind of emotions. I felt like I was living in a fog, going through the motions of daily life while my mind was consumed with thoughts of Emily and her betrayal. Work became a blur, friends noticed I was distant, and I couldn't shake the feeling of humiliation that clung to me. The anger bubbled just beneath the surface, and I knew I needed a plan. I spent my nights researching everything I could about finances and investments. I had always been decent with money, but this time I was fired up with purpose. I was determined to not only recover from this heartbreak, but to come out on top. I wanted to show Emily that she had made the biggest mistake of her life. I wasn't going to wallow in despair. I was going to turn my life around. It was during one of these late-night research sessions that I discovered the world of real estate investing. I read articles, watched countless YouTube videos, and joined online forums. The more I learned, the more I realized how much potential there was in this field. I could start small, invest in fixer-uppers, and build my way up. The thought of building wealth beyond anything Emily could imagine filled me with determination. On the surface, I played the part of the forgiving husband. I told Emily that I needed time to process everything and she should focus on her job. I didn't want to show her the extent of my anger, not yet. I wanted her to think I was still the same Jake, husband who was willing to work through this, but inside I was a different man. I set up a separate bank account, one she would never know about. I sold some of my old collectibles online and used that money to invest in my first property. It was a modest two-bedroom house in a neighborhood on the rise. I was nervous but excited. I remember feeling a rush of adrenaline the day I signed the papers. It felt like the first step toward reclaiming my life. Meanwhile, things at home remained tense. Emily seemed to sense the distance between us but didn't press too hard. She would occasionally attempt to talk about our relationship, expressing regret and wanting to make amends, but I brushed her off. I wasn't interested in her apologies. They felt hollow. I needed her to think I was considering reconciliation while I was building my empire in secret. One evening, as I was flipping through the latest home renovation blogs, I got a message from one of the forums I had joined. An experienced investor in my area had reached out, offering to mentor me. I jumped at the opportunity. We met at a local coffee shop, and I was eager to soak up any knowledge I could from him. His name was Mike, an old-school investor with years of experience. He was straightforward and no-nonsense, and I felt an instant connection. As I spent more time with Mike, I learned the ins and outs of the real estate market. I started working on my first property, pouring my energy into renovations. Every weekend was spent hammering nails, painting walls, and learning the ropes. The work was exhausting, but it was incredibly therapeutic. Each improvement I made on the house felt like a step away from my old life and toward a new one. Meanwhile, Emily continued her attempts at normalcy. She would come home with stories about her job and the banker, let's call him Eric, who had become her friend. Her words stung, but I kept my cool, maintaining a poker face. She had no idea what I was planning. One night, as we sat in the living room, I could sense her frustration. "Jake, can't we just talk about this? I feel like you're shutting me out," she said, her voice tinged with exasperation. I looked at her, masking my emotions. "I'm just trying to process everything, Em. I need my space." She sighed, and I could see the disappointment on her face. "I just want to fix this. I miss us." Miss us. The audacity of her words felt like another stab to my heart. I had to remind myself why I was doing this. I needed to hold my ground to show her the consequences of her actions. I dove deeper into my investments, using every bit of energy I had to escape the emotional turmoil at home. The more I worked on my properties, the more I felt empowered. I began networking with other investors, attending local real estate meetups, and soaking in every bit of knowledge I could find. Each step I took felt like a brick laid on the path to my revenge. As weeks passed, I completed the renovations on my first house and successfully sold it for a substantial profit. I couldn't believe it. I had turned my pain into productivity and profit. It was exhilarating. With my newfound wealth, I bought another property, and this time I made even bolder choices. I was building a portfolio, and with each acquisition I felt more in control of my life. But now it was time for the next phase of my plan. I could no longer keep pretending with Emily. I needed to confront her about her betrayal in a way that she would understand the gravity of her actions. I wanted her to see that I was no longer the man she had taken for granted. I was transforming into someone she wouldn't recognize. The day of the confrontation loomed over me, and I felt a mix of anticipation and apprehension. How would she react? Would she finally realize the magnitude of her mistake? I had no idea, but I was ready to find out. That night, as Emily returned home from another dinner with friends, I called her into the living room. It was time to clear the air and let her know exactly where I stood. I had a feeling it was going to be a long night, but I was prepared for whatever came next. As Emily walked into the living room, I could see the flicker of nervousness in her eyes. She dropped her purse on the coffee table and glanced around, sensing the tension in the air. I had spent the day preparing for this moment, going over everything I wanted to say in my mind. I needed to be calm, but assertive, conveying the seriousness of her actions without letting my anger take over. "Jake, is something wrong?" she asked, fidgeting slightly. "No, nothing's wrong. I just wanted us to talk," I replied, my voice steady. She nodded, taking a seat on the edge of the couch, her body language betraying her discomfort. "Okay, what's on your mind?" I took a deep breath, gathering my thoughts. "I've been doing a lot of thinking since I found you in bed with Eric." I watched her flinch at the mention of his name, and it felt good to see that she was uncomfortable. "Jake, let me finish," I interrupted, raising my hand. "I want you to know that I've been trying to process everything you've done, but it's not just about that night. It's about the lies, the deception, and the fact that you've shattered our trust." Her face shifted from shock to a defensive posture. "I didn't intend for things to go that far. You don't understand the pressure I was under at work." "Stop right there." I cut her off again, feeling the heat rising in my chest. "You think I don't understand pressure? I've been working hard to build our life together to support us, and you chose to betray me with a man who works in finance. You think I'm just going to let that slide?" "I know I messed up. I'm sorry, okay?" she said, her voice rising. "But you have to understand that I was feeling neglected. You were always busy with work, and I felt alone. I sought comfort elsewhere. And you think having sex with another man is the solution?" I shot back, disbelief flooding my voice. "You didn't even think of talking to me. You didn't even consider how much that would hurt me." Tears welled up in her eyes, and for a moment I felt a flicker of sympathy, but I quickly squashed it. This was about me now. "I've been working on myself, Emily," I continued, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside me. "While you were busy betraying me, I was busy building a future without you. I've invested in real estate, and I'm doing well." Her eyes widened and she straightened in her seat. "What do you mean? What are you talking about?" "I bought my first property, flipped it, and made a healthy profit. I'm just getting started, and it feels good to finally take control of my life." I leaned forward, letting my words sink in. "I won't be the man you can walk all over anymore. I'm done letting you dictate how this relationship works." She blinked, clearly shocked by my transformation, and I watched as the realization hit her. "Jake, you can't be serious. Are you saying you're just going to walk away from us, just like that?" "I'm saying I don't want to be in a relationship with you anymore. You've made your choice, and now I'm making mine." The finality of my words hung heavy in the air. "Please don't do this. I love you," she pleaded, desperation creeping into her voice. "Do you?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. "Because if you truly loved me, you wouldn't have done what you did. You wouldn't have turned to Eric like he was your emotional crutch." "Jake, I was wrong. I'll make it right. Let's go to counseling. I'll do anything." I shook my head. "No, Emily, we're past that point. You've shown me who you really are, and I can't unsee it. I deserve better than this." Her expression shifted from desperation to anger. "So what? You're just going to walk away from everything we built together? You think you can just leave me like this?" "Actually, that's exactly what I'm going to do," I replied, feeling a sense of liberation wash over me. "You'll be left with nothing, and I'll be out there thriving. You'll have to live with the consequences of your choices." She opened her mouth to protest, but the words didn't come. Instead, she looked at me with a mix of anger and disbelief, her facade cracking. "You think this is going to somehow teach me a lesson, that you'll be better off without me?" "I don't just think it, I know it," I replied, standing up from the couch. "I refuse to let you take any more of my happiness. I'm taking back control of my life, and that starts now." I turned to leave the room, and her voice followed me. "You're making a huge mistake, Jake. You'll regret this." But I didn't look back. There was a strange sense of peace within me as I walked away. I had finally confronted the woman who had caused me so much pain, and I had stood up for myself. The days that followed were a blur. I moved my things into a small apartment I had rented, and Emily didn't bother to fight me on it. She knew it was over. I spent my days focusing on my real estate ventures, and the more I immersed myself in work, the more I realized how liberating it felt to be detached from her lies. I began networking even more, attending investment seminars and connecting with others in the real estate business. The support I found in the community helped me grow not only as an investor, but as a person. I was learning who I was outside of the relationship, and it felt like I was rediscovering my identity. But as I progressed in my career, a part of me still couldn't shake the feeling of resentment toward Emily. I couldn't understand how someone I loved could betray me so easily, and it fueled my ambition. With each property I acquired, I felt like I was building a fortress around my heart, shielding myself from ever feeling that kind of betrayal again. As the weeks turned into months, I immersed myself in work and my newfound freedom. I was starting to thrive, but there was still a lingering sense of closure I needed. I hadn't fully confronted the emotional turmoil Emily had caused me. It was time to address that part of my journey, and I knew exactly how to do it. I wanted to ensure that Emily understood the consequences of her actions, not just through words but through actions that would make it clear that my success was my own, and she would no longer be a part of my life. The time for retribution was coming, and I was ready to execute my plan, leaving her behind in the dust as I built a future that was brighter than anything she'd ever imagined. It was time for the final confrontation. As the months rolled on, my investments began to flourish, and my financial landscape was changing dramatically. I was proud of what I had built from the ashes of my broken marriage, but with success came the need for resolution. I knew I had to confront Emily one last time, not just for my sake but for hers as well. I needed her to understand the full extent of her actions, and I wanted her to face the reality of what she had lost. I decided to invite her over to the apartment I had rented. It was modest but filled with the energy of new beginnings. I had furniture that reflected my newfound independence, and the walls were adorned with artwork that inspired me. This was no longer the home I shared with her. It was a symbol of my transformation. Emily arrived on a Saturday afternoon, and I could see the nervousness in her eyes as she stepped over the threshold. She had reached out multiple times since our confrontation, but I had kept my distance, allowing her to stew in her regret. "Jake," she said tentatively, glancing around, "thanks for inviting me. Let's just get to the point, shall we?" I replied, ushering her to the living room. I wanted to be straightforward. She needed to understand that this meeting was not about reconciliation. This was about accountability. "I've been thinking a lot about everything," she started, looking down at her hands. "I know I hurt you and I'm sorry. I want to fix things between us." "Emily, this isn't about fixing things. You broke my trust and there's no going back from that," I said firmly. "But I wanted you to see what your actions have cost you." I pulled out my laptop and opened a presentation I had prepared. It included pictures of my new properties, the renovations I had completed, and the profits I had made. I felt a sense of pride as I scrolled through the slides. Each image represented a step away from her betrayal and a step toward my bright future. She watched in silence, her expression shifting from confusion to surprise. "Jake, this is incredible. I didn't realize you were doing so well." "Of course you didn't. You were too busy with Eric to care about what I was doing," I replied, my voice steady. "But look at this, Emily." I clicked to the next slide, which showed my portfolio's growth. In just 6 months, I've managed to build a solid foundation for myself. I'm not just surviving, I'm thriving. I'm proud of you, she said, her voice softening. That's not the point. You need to understand that while you were out making choices that hurt me, I was making decisions that have changed my life. I paused, watching her absorb the information. You made a choice to cheat, and now you're going to see how that choice has impacted us both. Jake, please, I didn't mean for any of this to happen, she pleaded. And that's the problem, I countered. You took everything we built for granted. You thought you could betray me and still keep your life intact, but that's not how this works. You chose Eric, and now you'll have to live with the consequences. I leaned back in my chair, letting the gravity of my words settle in. You may have thought I was weak, but I've grown stronger. I'm not the same man you walked all over. I'm someone who will not settle for less than I deserve. Her eyes glistened with unshed tears as she processed what I was saying. I know I messed up. I'm sorry for everything, Jake. Can't we just start over? Can't we find a way to make this work? Why should I trust you again? I asked, my tone unwavering. You've shown me your true colors. You believed you could have your cake and eat it too, but now you're left with nothing. I've moved on, and you need to accept that. You've seen what I can achieve without you. You'll need to learn how to do the same. Jake, I can change, she cried, frustration spilling out in her voice. Change, I scoffed. You think that I want to be the person who waits around for you to change. No, I'm not doing that. I'm not angry anymore. I'm not heartbroken. I'm simply moving forward with my life, and you need to do the same. I could see the weight of my words settling heavily on her. You're really serious about this, aren't you? She asked, her voice trembling. Absolutely. And the sooner you accept that, the better. I leaned forward, locking eyes with her. You'll have to figure out your life from here on out without me. You can't come back to me and expect everything to be fine. You've made your bed, and now it's time to lie in it. Emily nodded slowly, her expression shifting from shock to acceptance. I understand. I just didn't realize how much you were capable of without me. Maybe that was the problem all along, I said, my voice firm. You never believed in my potential. You took me for granted, and now you're going to have to reckon with that truth. A silence enveloped the room, filled only with the hum of the nearby city outside. I could see the gears turning in her mind as she processed everything I had laid out for her. Jake, I wish things had gone differently. I really do, she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. And I wish you had realized what you had before throwing it away, I shot back. But I can't change the past, and I won't let it dictate my future. I deserve more than empty apologies. With that, I stood up, signaling that our conversation was coming to an end. You need to leave, Emily. I need space to continue my journey, and you need to figure out yours. She stood up slowly, her eyes filled with tears, and I could feel a pang of sympathy for her. But I quickly reminded myself that this was the consequence of her choices. I wouldn't be swayed. As she turned to leave, I felt a strange sense of closure wash over me. The weight of the past was finally lifting, and I knew I was ready to embrace my future fully. I had taken control of my life and emerged stronger than before. Once the door closed behind her, I turned to the window and looked out at the bustling city below. A new chapter awaited me, one filled with potential and promise. I was no longer the man who had been cheated on. I was now a force to be reckoned with, and I was ready to face whatever came next. It was time to build a life that Emily could only dream of, a life where I was in control, where I would never settle for less than I deserved. I had learned my lesson, and I was determined to make the most of it. The weeks that followed my confrontation with Emily were a blur of excitement and growth. I dove headfirst into my real estate investments, channeling all my energy into expanding my portfolio. Each new property was not just a business venture. It became a testament to my resilience and determination to rise above the betrayal. With every renovation, I felt more empowered. I was taking broken things and transforming them into something beautiful, much like I was doing with my own life. I networked with other investors, and through them, I learned about new trends in the market, flipping properties, and even renting them out. My confidence soared. I was becoming the man I had always wanted to be, a successful, independent individual who didn't need anyone to define his worth. One evening, as I was working on the latest property, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Mike, my mentor. He had some exciting news. Hey, Jake, I've got a lead on a potential multifamily investment opportunity. You interested?" I could hardly contain my excitement. This was the kind of opportunity I had been waiting for, something that could skyrocket my success even further. I quickly replied, "Absolutely. Let's meet up and discuss details." The next day, Mike and I sat down over coffee and he laid out the plan. The property was a rundown duplex in a desirable area. With the right renovations, it could become a cash cow. We discussed potential costs, timelines, and projected returns. My mind raced with possibilities, and I felt a renewed sense of purpose as I envisioned the transformation. I decided to go all in. I secured financing and within a week became the proud owner of my second property. The thrill of the deal was intoxicating. I spent countless hours drafting renovation plans, hiring contractors, and managing everything myself. But amidst this whirlwind of success, I couldn't shake the constant thoughts of Emily. I wondered how she was handling the aftermath of our breakup. Had she learned anything from her mistakes? Was she still with Eric, or had their relationship fizzled out? One Friday evening, as I was unwinding after a long week, I received an unexpected phone call. It was one of my friends from our old circle, Dave. "Hey Jake, I hope you're doing well. I wanted to catch up and fill you in on some news about Emily." I felt a knot form in my stomach at the mention of her name. "What's going on?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "Well, I ran into her last week at a coffee shop," Dave started. "We chatted for a bit and she mentioned she's been struggling. Apparently things with Eric didn't work out and she's been feeling really lost." I clenched my jaw, trying to suppress the mix of emotions swirling inside me. "I'm not surprised," I replied, trying to maintain a casual tone. "She made her choices." "Yeah, I get that, but she seemed genuinely regretful." "I know she's been reaching out to a few people from the past trying to reconnect. I just thought you'd want to know," he said carefully. I appreciated that he cared enough to tell me, but it brought no comfort. "Thanks, Dave. I guess it's good she's reflecting on things, but that doesn't change anything for me." "Right. Just thought I'd keep you in the loop. Take care, man." After hanging up, I found myself staring at the wall, processing what I had just learned. Part of me felt vindicated knowing that she was struggling. I had fought hard to reclaim my life, and the idea that she was now battling her own demons brought a sense of satisfaction. But another part of me felt a twinge of sympathy. I couldn't deny that I had loved her once. I had invested years of my life into our relationship, and the memories flooded back, both good and bad. I remembered the laughter, the dreams we had shared, and then the betrayal that had shattered it all. But I quickly reminded myself I had made the right decision. I was happier now, building a life that was my own. There was no room for nostalgia. My focus needed to remain on my future, not on a past that had betrayed me. As the weeks turned into months, my renovations on the duplex progressed rapidly. I had chosen a modern, upscale design that would appeal to young renters. Each room began to take shape, and I poured my heart and soul into making it perfect. As I stood in the nearly finished living room one evening, I felt a surge of pride wash over me. This was my life now, a life filled with potential and promise, free from the heavy burden of betrayal. I had built something incredible and I was finally living for myself. Then, one day as I was wrapping up a project, I received an email that shook me to my core. It was from Emily. I hadn't heard from her in months and I had to brace myself before opening it. "Jake," it began. "I hope you're doing well. It's been a while since we last spoke. I've had some time to reflect on everything and I wanted to reach out to you. I realize now how much I took for granted and I regret the pain I caused you. I miss our friendship and I'd like to apologize in person if you're open to it." My heart raced. Did she really think I would entertain the idea of meeting her again? After everything, I sat in silence, contemplating my response. I could feel the temptation to give in to old feelings, but I knew that wasn't what I wanted anymore. I wasn't the same man I had been when we were together. After several minutes of deliberation, I composed a reply. "Emily, I appreciate your message, but I think we both need to move on. I've made significant strides in my life since we parted, and I believe it's best if we continue to focus on our respective paths. I wish you all the best." As soon as I hit send, a wave of relief washed over me. I had made my decision and I felt stronger for it. I was moving forward without the baggage of the past. In the following weeks, I continued to pour myself into my work. The duplex was ready for its first tenants, and I rented it out swiftly, generating a steady income. My investments were flourishing, and I began to plan for my next venture. Finally, one evening, as I was reviewing my goals for the coming year, I received another message. This time it was from Mike, wanting to discuss a potential partnership on a larger project. My heart raced at the prospect. This could be a game changer for me. As I prepared for our meeting, I felt a sense of excitement building within me. I was ready to kick off a new chapter in my life, one filled with opportunity, growth, and the promise of a future that was entirely my own. I had turned my pain into power, and now I was ready to embrace all that lay ahead. No more looking back. It was time to forge ahead and seize every moment. I had learned that I could rise above any challenge, and the best was yet to come. The past was just that, the past, and I was finally ready to leave it behind. As I moved into the final months of the year, the momentum of my real estate ventures continued to build. My collaboration with Mike had opened up new networks and opportunities that I could hardly have imagined just a year earlier. With each successful project, I felt my confidence surge. I had become a player in the real estate game, and it felt exhilarating. With the duplex fully rented and cash flow coming in, I began scouting for my next investment. The thrill of the hunt was addictive. I was not just looking for properties, but for ways to elevate my financial freedom. I attended more seminars, connected with other investors, and immersed myself in market analysis. Each day I learned something new, and it was empowering. However, even in the midst of this success, my thoughts occasionally drifted back to Emily. I had received a few more messages from her, each one filled with apologies and a sense of longing for connection. I never responded. I had made it clear that I was moving on, and I meant it. The memories of her betrayal had forged a determination within me to never let anyone diminish my self-worth again. One evening, while going over some paperwork at my apartment, I received a text from Dave. "Hey, just wanted to let you know that Emily is back in town for a few days. She wanted to meet up with friends, and I think she's hoping you would come too." I read the message several times, feeling a mix of emotions. The part of me that once cared for her battled with the man I had become. I knew that seeing her again could bring up old feelings, but part of me also wondered if I could face her without the weight of the past dragging me down. I mulled over it for a couple of days. Finally, I decided that I was strong enough to handle it. I accepted Dave's invitation to a gathering at a local bar. I told myself it would be a chance to show Emily how far I had come and to solidify my resolve to stay on my path. As I walked into the bar that Friday evening, I felt a rush of nostalgia wash over me. It was a place we had frequented together, and memories flooded back. I spotted Dave and a few other friends gathered around a table. I approached, greeted them, and tried to shake off the nervous energy buzzing in my stomach. And then I saw her. Emily sat at the opposite end of the table, engaged in conversation with some of our old friends. She looked different, more mature perhaps, but still striking. I felt a pang of familiarity, but I quickly reminded myself of the heartache that had come from my past. I was no longer that man who allowed himself to be swept into someone else's narrative. As the night wore on, I found myself engaged in conversation with others, occasionally stealing glances at her. I watched as she laughed and interacted with everyone. Part of me wanted to approach her, but I held back, reminding myself of the boundaries I had set. I was here for me, not for her. Eventually, our eyes met across the table. Her gaze held a mixture of surprise and nostalgia. I could see the regret in her expression as she took a sip from her drink, but I remained steady, not allowing her look to sway me. I could feel the energy shift at the table as more people noticed the tension between us. Finally, she stood up and walked over to me, her expression serious. I could see the vulnerability in her eyes. "Jake," she began, hesitating for a moment. "Can we talk?" I took a deep breath, trying to gauge my feelings. "Sure," I replied, gesturing toward a quieter corner of the bar. Once we were away from prying ears, she looked at me, searching for the right words. "I've thought a lot about what happened between us. I know I hurt you, and I've been trying to come to terms with my mistakes." I nodded, wanting her to continue. "I see you now, thriving and happy," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "And I realize I pushed you away in a way that I can never take back. I wanted to tell you that I'm truly sorry for everything." "Emily, I appreciate your apology," I said carefully, "but we both know that it's not just about saying sorry. You made choices that affected both of us deeply. I can't pretend those don't exist." I know," she said, her eyes glistening. "But I want you to know that I've changed. I've been in therapy and I'm working on myself. I've realized how much I took for granted and I miss our friendship. I miss you." I stood there, processing her words. Part of me wanted to feel the familiar warmth of connection, but I quickly extinguished that thought. "Emily, I've learned to build a life without you. I've grown and changed too, but it's not about rekindling what we had. It's about recognizing what has happened and moving forward." She looked down, visibly disheartened, but I could see that she was genuinely reflecting on her actions. "I understand. I just wanted to let you know that I'm proud of you and I wish things could have been different." "Thank you," I replied, my voice steady. "But I'm in a different place now. I'm focused on my future, and I want you to find your own path too. We're on separate journeys." Now, her eyes met mine again, and I could tell she wanted to say more, but I knew it was time to let this chapter end. "I hope you find what you're looking for, Emily." With that, I turned and walked back to my friends, leaving Emily standing there. I felt a sense of closure wash over me. I wasn't angry or hurt anymore, I was free. I had faced my past, confronted the woman who had betrayed me, and emerged stronger. As the evening continued, I found myself laughing and enjoying the company of friends, the weight of the past finally lifting from my shoulders. I was ready to embrace the future. I had built a life that was entirely my own. The night ended with promises of staying connected, but I knew that I had the power to shape my own story now. My journey was far from over. It was just beginning. I had learned that I could rise above any challenge, and I was prepared to seize all the opportunities that lay ahead. With my heart light and my mind focused, I stepped out into the cool night air, ready to embrace whatever came next, knowing that I had the strength to build my own happiness, no matter what.